Tonight it's a talk on the BBC local radio, the Central Apparatus Room, also known as the Rack Room, as it was in the 1990s, YouTube live stream at 2000 hours on Friday the 17th of April 2026. Hello and welcome to my talk on BBC local radio stations, Central Apparatus Rooms, known by some station staff as the Rack Room. It should be noted at this point that the BBC is piloting virtual central apparatus rooms for its local radio stations. These virtual rack rooms aren't covered in this discussion, as my student placement was done at BBC Radio WM from Monday the 1st of July 1994 until Friday the 5th of July 1994, quite a while ago. The Central Apparatus Room's main purpose is to house the leased line's incoming termination equipment together with leased line transmission equipment, i.e. equipment concerning outgoing lines to the various stations' transmitters via British Telecommunications PLC's technical premises, whether these premises are big enough to be designated network switching centres which are found in large cities, or just BT PLC technical premises such as Lancaster House in Liverpool, UK, once a PSTN secondary switching centre, which provides a housing for broadcast line routing equipment and access to further cable ducts for allowing optical fibre cables to be connected to the BBC local radio stations at issue transmitter sites. These days, all broadcast quality leased lines are optical fibre cables. In the past, the BBC local radio broadcasters used wire pair lines to interconnect the central apparatus rooms with their medium wave transmitters. And there are the same wire pairs that could be rolled out to ordinary members of the public telephone subscribers, but they could also carry broadcast quality sound. There was enough bandwidth available in the wire pairs to carry broadcast quality sound, not just the narrowband telephone sound that people are used to. For the VHF FM transmitters, however, which offered hi-fi quality sound, it was felt prudent from the 1970s onwards to use a pulse code modulation leased line, sometimes called a digital pipe, which used a coaxial cable with pulse regenerators spaced at regular intervals along the line in question, perhaps just over every 1 kilometre or longer. This was because digital pulses go out of shape, leading to a higher bit error rate along the cable's route. As time went on, however, the spacing between pulse regenerator points were increased due to improvements in error detection and correction systems. Nowadays, all digital point-to-point lines for broadcasters use fibre optic cables. One strand of optical fibre is enough though, but BT PLC nearly always install a bundle of several optical fibres in the form of a fibre optic cable. In case there's a fault in one of the fibres, or more services are required. In a rack room, there's also signal processing equipment to be found. For instance, when BBC local radio stations were using medium wave transmitters, the Optimod signal processor, short for optimum modulation, was used to increase the dynamic range of the transmitter it was connected to. And the dynamic range of a sound signal is the difference between the quietest sound and the loudest sound that can be handled in an audio system. Dynamic range means something different in a video system. There was also signal processing equipment in existence for increasing the dynamic range of an FM transmission. This, of course, was or is installed in the rack room. It should be noted that BT PLC have a division within BT called Broadcast Network Services, or what's sometimes known to people as broadcast services, which usually deal with broadcast leased line provision and radio and fixed line insertion points at football stadia and other public venues like the Royal Albert Hall and other halls, and also Castle Transmission and Arquiva transmitter sites for outside broadcast services. These days, however, a medium Earth orbit satellite communications van or truck is usually used to get a TV outside broadcast signal back to the broadcaster's studio centre. However, I digress from local radio. Returning to the central apparatus room, that's sometimes abbreviated to the letters CAR, in a typical BBC local radio station. Only the station's 3 engineering staff members are permitted to gain access, with the exception of the station manager, who's now known as the managing editor of the station concerned. The rack room is out of bounds to the presenters and other station staff. This is because the local radio station concerned can be taken off the air by operating appropriate switches, either in hardware or software, located in relevant rack-mounted units within the central apparatus room. There's usually 3 engineers in each BBC local radio station. The engineer in charge is the top man, with 2 subordinate engineers beneath them. The EIC is a senior member of the station staff, and meets with the station manager / managing editor and producers each day, together with other senior staff usually. The managing editor and the 3 engineers, not just the engineer in charge, usually hold small firearms licenses for the protection of the rest of the staff and, of course, technical equipment. As I alluded to at the beginning of my discussion, the BBC are rolling out virtual central apparatus rooms now. What knowledge I have dates back to July 1994, when I completed a student placement at BBC WM in Birmingham, West Midlands, United Kingdom. And this ends my talk on BBC local radio station central apparatus rooms, also known as rack rooms. Thank you for watching.